That was a little different, huh? Well, if you've been following along, you'll know that in the last video we covered a variety of topics and we finally finished up our turnout controls. Believe me when I say that I'm ready to move on. But first, let's quickly get sidetracked. You know, there's a lot of great model railroading going on right here in the good old USA, but the truth is there's a lot of great modelers all over the world. In fact, some of my greatest inspirations have come from some of those modelers that live across the big pond. I want to share a fantastic inspirational resource with you. This is the YouTube channel of a great guy named Dirk. He's from the Netherlands, but he travels all over Europe to attend train shows and meets, and lucky for us, he captures them in high quality video. Well, this is Dirk's YouTube channel, and it's called D-LOC Media. He covers a wide variety of events featuring everything from small scales all the way up to the real thing. As you can see in his videos, the modeling he captures is nothing short of master class. Another neat exception is the fact that many of these fine displays are modular and portable. He covers such a wide variety that I could spend all day watching these high quality videos. The modeling is nothing short of amazing. You can tell by Dirk's videos that he not only has real passion for modeling, but more importantly his willingness to share those videos with all of us. So I have to give a big shout out to Dirk and thank him for his dedication to the hobby. We need more guys like Dirk. For more information on Dirk's YouTube channel, the info is right in this video's description. Check it out. Alright, after all that, I'm feeling inspired. Let's get to work, shall we? Yeah, this one's a little bit different from the previous progress videos. We're going to go from start to finish, making it a bit more of a how-to video, or I should say how-I video, because there's a lot of ways you can do things. Really, what we're doing is fairly basic. We're going to create terrain for scenery that will work with the scene in the proposed backdrop. The structure of the terrain will rise from the front of the layout to the rear. We don't want to connect the terrain to the backdrop itself, so we'll create scenery backboards that'll sit in front of the photo backdrop. This way we have a solid structure and it won't interfere once we install the backdrop later. In the planning illustration here, you can see where the tunnel portals will be located. We'll need to fashion what I call tunnel boxes. You can call them anything you want, but I call them tunnel boxes. Now these tunnel boxes will not only protect the track below, they'll help disguise the fact that the track disappears, and they'll also be part of the scene itself. Now, although I'm sort of modeling a specific area, I'm also using modeler's license. The real line has concrete portals, but I choose to give it a little more interest and texture. Now for the tunnel liner, we're going to use a texture print that mimics the random stone of the portals. For the understructure of the terrain, we'll use 1-inch and 3-inch blue insulation foam that'll be cut to fit. As you'll see in this illustration, we're going to cut the shapes into what I guess we could call splines, S-P-L-I-N-E-S. We'll cut them to fit each spot as we move across the layout. Now in some areas we may use a combination of stacked foam or cardboard webbing. As always, it never hurts to experiment and find out what works best for you. Now all that looks nice and clean in the graphic illustration, but on the real thing it may not be so pretty. Look at that thing is green, and no pun intended, but we're going green here, folks. Yep, we're going to use a lot of different yet readily available items in our effort to utilize and recycle materials. In this case, I'm using a piece from an old diorama backdrop. It's mounted on sturdy gator foam. As you can see, I'm using the thicker blue foam that I cut into blocks, and I'm securing them with household construction adhesive. In the event you can't already tell, I'm just adding and stacking with the available materials. Now if you look closely, you can see that our terrain backboard sits in front of the backdrop groove. If you have no clue what I'm talking about by saying backdrop groove, you need to refer back to the earlier videos in this series. In addition to the reliefs cut for the track, I also made some provisions to run the wires through. These wires will connect both modules together. Here I'm adding height to our backboard and creating a slope that'll go from left to right. Again, this backboard will give us something sturdy to attach the splines and terrain items to without fouling the photo backdrop. I told you it looks a little messy, but remember, this area will never be seen again. Alright, let's move on to those tunnel boxes, or tunnel liners, or tunnels, or whatever you want to call them. Now the tunnel walls are nothing more than cheap foam board cut to fit. After I arrived at the right shape and size, I mounted the photorealistic print to the inside. I certainly could have used some other product for the tunnel liner, but I felt that the impression that the texture print gave was just as good, especially considering the fact that it's the inside of a tunnel and not on the edge of the layout. After I installed the walls, I added some pieces of blue foam to act as bracing, and I also gave it a sealed roof. You may have noticed some track ballast in that last shot. I ballasted it only the areas that would be hidden and hard to reach. We can go back and blend all this in later. Of course, this isn't brain surgery. I literally went back and forth with this area. It's a tough one because there's two separate portals in close proximity, and I wanted to get the look right. So I went back and forth. If I put something in and I didn't like how it appeared, I simply started over. And although I'm using this particular clip in the video, it's actually one of the things I took out and changed. Alright, moving right along here, it's time to start making those splines out of blue foam. The process is simple, and it's nothing more than creating the shape you need and then fitting it in against the backboard. Of course, you may have to cut reliefs in the back and the bottom to make it fit over the tunnel boxes and any other obstructions that may be present. We talked about how there are many methods you can use to create terrain. One of those methods is using cardboard strips. Well, I started to do that in this location, but in the end I had to change it. Well, I shouldn't say had to, more like wanted to. This was after I took a step back and I realized that I wanted more scenery in between the coal mine location and the tunnel opening. I felt that it was just too close and that it would interfere with photos by making it look too cramped. So I moved it forward from that spot. Another thing you can do to help visualize as you go is add a sheet or a towel over top of the splines. This gives you a decent enough idea of how the scenery will appear. Meanwhile, over on the right-hand side of the module, we'll use the exact same method of adding the splines as we go. See, this is fun. We're using a lot of budget materials and we're making this easy. My motto is, if no one will ever see it again, neatness doesn't count. For this area, I used the quick method of cardboard strips. You know, it's such a small area that I felt there was no need to cut foam to fit. If it was just going to be a paper mache over top of it, I probably would have used the foam or even webbed the cardboard, but you'll see in the next step that this wasn't necessary. Alrighty, there you have it, all the splines in place. Now to give it a little puffiness, we added crumpled up paper in between. This will keep everything uniform and not allow any dips between the splines. Now for the stream bed area, I used the layering method with the foam. This gave me the ability to quickly create the stream contour and the rising banks. Again, these are just some of the methods that I use for creating terrain, and there's many methods out there that work. Remember, this is a portable layout that'll spend a lot of time on the road, so with that, we want the scenery to be rugged. No pun intended. Okay, it looks good, but we're not out of the woods yet. Sorry, no pun intended again. Okay, we're not done yet. The next step is really going to bring this all together. Just remember, it doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be pretty if no one's ever going to see it again. Well, everything looks pretty good, and we're almost ready to move on to the next step. Tying it all together. With portable layouts, I find that if you can create scenery with a little flex, it'll go a long way in keeping your scenery intact. Of course, if the layout was simply a flat-top box, we wouldn't have to worry as much about scenery cracking as a casualty of long rides and rough roads. I've found that using a layer of flexible screen over the structure and underneath the hard shell provides a little, much-needed flexibility. With that said, we're going to do just that. We're going to start by draping the screen over the structure and securing it in place. Once that's done, we can simply cut off the excess. Again, let your budget mind go to work. You can staple this thing down, screw it down with old screws, nails, or anything. Doesn't have to be pretty. Hey, see how easy this is? It's not brain surgery, and you don't even have to have a helper, but it really helps. Get it? Hey, just be thankful I'm not telling presidential election jokes. Wow, looks great, doesn't it? With everything screened in, it's now time to make a mess. No, I'm not kidding. If you've ever worked with plaster or any of the commercially available scenery mixes, it can get real messy, so make sure you cover everything up. I like to use plaster of Paris, although there's a lot of commercially available mixes out there. It's fairly cheap and it dries quick. For a paper mache type mix, we're going to use the plaster of Paris and some white glue mixed in. We're also going to use a box of commercially available cheap shop towels. Now they're like paper towels, but they're a little thicker. And you can certainly use newspaper or a variety of other materials. We're going to start at the top of the backboard and apply a nice heavy coat of just the mixture. This will add strength to the point of contact between the backboard and the screen holding everything in place. We worked across the top of the module from one side to the other, and then we filled in all other areas as needed. And here we go with the paper mache method. We just dipped the towels in the mix and then simply applied it going from top to bottom and then working across the module. With everything thoroughly covered, we went around the module and added goops of the mix wherever it was needed. It was like frosting a cake. Nice to see it all come together, and of course we had to take our high-speed track cleaning test train around to make sure it all still worked. And it did. Hey, I always take the added step of applying a coat of dirt-colored paint to get rid of that awful white. This will help when we begin to add the scenery elements real soon. Be sure to subscribe, stay tuned, and follow the progress. This is Joey Ricard with TrackSideScenery.com. Thanks for watching. See you next time.